Assalamualaikum. Today we are going to do watercolor mixing chart. With just 8 colors, you will produce 64 mixture of colors. This is what you need: 2 water container, an old cloth, dried tissue, flat brush, palette with colors, and a chart. I did the chart using pencil and ruler, and I lined them up with a water resistant pen so that it doesn't smear when you paint later. So this is how I paint. I wet the brush first, take yellow from the palette of color, and wash the brush again and mix it with an orange. For each color, you have to mix an equal number of portions. This first box has too many water in the paint, so you'll get a transparent effect when it dries. When you want to get an opaque effect, you add less water. So after painting it, I wash the brush and rinse it on the second container and continue with the next color. Again, I start with yellow. Wash the brush, make sure it's clean. A little bit of red. And I mix it in the palette. And I paint it on the paper. I'm using a watercolor paper, so when I paint it on, it absorbs all the paint. Unlike using a drawing paper, the paint doesn't absorb as quickly, and you have to wait until it dries for you to mix another layer. Now I'm washing the brush again and moving on to the third mixture, yellow and blue. I make sure all the consistency for the colors are the same. And I'm very careful not to paint the entire box so it doesn't bleed to the next box. Washing the brush again and rinsing it in clear water and moving on to the next color, which is yellow and green. Before I paint or take the paint of green in palette, I wash the brush out of yellow first. The idea of creating a watercolor mixing chart is for you to explore or realize how many colors you can make just by mixing a few colors. Right, usually you don't have to buy more than 12 colors. You can get an assortment of 64 colors by just mixing 8 colors. Also, if you're painting and you want to figure out which color to paint, you can come back to this watercolor chart and check the color that's close to the reference picture and recreate the color instead of going all over again, recreating it from scratch. Now I'm mixing yellow and purple. Yellow and purple are contrast colors in the wheel. So when you mix it, it kind of shows like a brownish neutral tone. Oops, I did not wash my brush before applying it on brown, so I'm brushing it again and using a clean brush. If you have the time, you can also create many other charts. You can start with chart that mixes with 3 colors, 4 colors and more. You can also play with the consistency of the water. For this one, I'm using ratio of 2 colors from the row and 2 colors from the column. As we have learned, shade is when you add black to a color. I add only a little bit of black so that it doesn't overpower the color. Okay, so I'm painting it at the second layer. You have to wait until the first layer dries, then only you can paint on top of the first layer. If you paint while the paint is still wet, you can only get a mixture of the first and second layer. You will get 2 layers. What I mean is, the first layer and the second layer, or the first paint that was painted on the paper and the second paint, are only going to get mixed on the paper instead of layered. Now I'm washing the palette. Lift off some water from the container using your brush and lightly brush it off on the palette area that you've been working on. Use dry tissue and wipe it off. You need a clear or clean palette area to work on. We don't want color from the previous mixture to be mixed with the new one. So that is why you need a very clean palette area. If you're not using palette and if you're using any other container, just make sure it's clean and dry. The whole idea with the mixing is you must make sure your brush is clean when you are trying to mix with the other color. I won't be completing the whole color mixture in this video. Since this is just a demo, so I don't want to take a long time. This is how your color mixing chart should look like. On this piece, I used the normal drawing paper. Look at the smear of the pen because I did not use a water resistant pen. And look at the absorption of the paper. And this is the watercolor paper. And compare it with the paper I just showed just now. This paper absorbs paint very well.